The coffee splashed across his chest in slow motion. Chen watched in horror as three corporate executives laughed, their designer shoes planted firmly on the marble floor of the Chicago headquarters building where she worked as a junior marketing associate. "Oops," one of them sneered, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Didn't see you there, janitor." The man who'd been hit, quiet, older, always polite, simply stood there, soaked, holding his mop with calloused hands that trembled slightly, not from fear, from restraint. "That's enough," Maya heard herself say, her voice cutting through their laughter like a blade. The executives turned, surprised that anyone would dare interrupt their morning entertainment. But Maya didn't back down. She stepped forward, placed herself between them and the janitor, and said the words that would change her life forever. "Touch him again and I'll make sure HR hears about this, all of it." What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man she was defending wasn't just any janitor. He was the heir to a fortune worth $2.8 billion, and he had been hiding in plain sight for reasons that would soon unravel one of the most shocking family conspiracies in American business history. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden identity, unexpected justice, and the courage to stand up for what's right, let me know in the comments, have you ever defended someone when no one else would? And if you believe that kindness should never depend on someone's job title or bank account, please hit that subscribe button right now to help us grow. You won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's go back to where it all began, because before Maya defended a stranger, before she discovered the truth, she was just trying to survive in a city that didn't care about people like her. Maya had moved to Chicago from a small town in Ohio 3 years ago with nothing but a business degree from a state university and dreams bigger than her studio apartment in Logan Square. At 26, she was still at the bottom of the corporate ladder at Meridian Solutions, a marketing firm housed in one of the gleaming towers downtown. Every morning, she took the red line to work, squeezed between commuters who never made eye contact. Every evening, she returned to an apartment where the heat barely worked, and the neighbors upstairs fought loud enough to keep her awake. But Maya was a fighter. She always had been. Growing up, she'd watched her mother work 3 jobs to keep food on the table after her father left. She learned early that the world didn't hand you anything. You had to take it, piece by piece, day by day. The morning the incident happened, Maya had arrived early, as usual. She liked the quiet of the building before everyone else showed up, the way the sunrise hit the windows and made the city look almost beautiful. That's when she saw him. The janitor, she'd seen him dozens of times but never learned his name, was cleaning the executive floor. He moved methodically, efficiently, like someone who took pride in work that others considered beneath them. Then the 3 executives arrived. Preston Hale, a senior VP with a reputation for cruelty disguised as tough leadership, his lapdog, Todd Brennan, who laughed at everything Preston said, and Kimberly Frost, an ice-cold strategist who believed kindness was weakness. They walked past the janitor as if he were furniture. Then Preston accidentally bumped him, sending his coffee flying. The hot liquid hit the janitor square in the chest, staining his gray uniform dark brown. Preston laughed. Todd joined in. Kimberly smirked and checked her phone. "My bad," Preston said, his tone making it clear it wasn't an accident. "You should really watch where you're standing." The janitor didn't respond. He just stood there, dripping, jaw tight. That's when Maya stepped in. "That's enough." Preston turned, his smile fading into irritation. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Maya said, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "That was deliberate, and I saw everything." "And who are you?" Kimberly asked, her eyes narrowing. "Someone who knows the difference between leadership and bullying." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Preston laughed, a cold, dismissive sound, and walked away, Todd and Kimberly following like well-trained dogs. But before he disappeared into his office, he turned back one last time. "I'll remember you." When they were gone, Maya finally exhaled. Her hands were shaking. The janitor looked at her with eyes that held something she couldn't quite name. Gratitude, yes, but also recognition? Understanding? "Thank you," he said quietly. His voice was deeper than she expected, cultured even, with the faint trace of an East Coast accent. "You okay?" Maya asked. He nodded. "I've dealt with worse." "What's your name?" He hesitated just for a second. "Elias Whitmore." "I'm Maya Chen." They stood there in the empty hallway, the morning sun now fully illuminating the building. For reasons she couldn't explain, Maya felt like she'd just crossed some invisible line, like her life had just shifted onto a different track. "You should be careful," Elias said softly. "Men like Preston Hale don't forget." "Neither do I," Maya replied. Something flickered in Elias's eyes, approval maybe, or warning. Then he picked up his mop and went back to work, leaving Maya alone with the sinking realization that she'd just made a very powerful enemy. She was right. By noon, Maya's manager called her into his office. Roger Stanton was a middle-aged man with perpetual sweat stains under his arms and a desperate need to please anyone above him on the corporate ladder. "Maya," he said, not meeting his eyes, "we need to talk about your behavior this morning." "My behavior?" "Preston Hale filed a complaint, says you were insubordinate, disrespectful, and created a hostile environment." Maya's blood turned to ice. "That's a lie. He bullied a janitor and I called him out." Roger sighed like this was all very exhausting. "Look, I don't know what happened, and frankly, it doesn't matter. Preston is a senior VP. You're a junior associate. Do the math." "So I'm supposed to just ignore harassment?" "I'm saying you need to pick your battles." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Maya, you're a smart girl. You have a future here. Don't throw it away over some janitor." The words hit her like a slap. Some janitor. As if being a janitor made Elias less human, less deserving of respect. "Is that all?" Maya asked coldly. "Just keep your head down, for your own good." Maya walked out of that office knowing two things. One, she would never keep her head down, and two, she needed to be smarter about how she fought. That night, she stayed late at the office, partly to avoid going home to her cold apartment, partly because she had work to catch up on. The building was mostly empty, just a few lights scattered across the floors like stars. When she was printing reports, she heard the cleaning cart wheels squeaking down the hallway. Elias appeared, pushing his cart with the same methodical precision. When he saw her, he nodded, a small, respectful gesture. "Working late?" he asked. "Always," Maya said. "You?" "Same." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, then Maya said, "I got in trouble today because of this morning." Elias stopped what he was doing. "I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention." "Don't be. I'd do it again." He studied her with those penetrating eyes. "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do." "Not many people in this building would agree with you." "Then not many people in this building are worth knowing." Elias smiled, really smiled for the first time. It transformed his face, made him look younger somehow, less weighted down. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "Who?" "My mother. She never backed down either." The way he said it, past tense, with a heaviness that suggested loss, made Maya's chest tighten. "I should let you work," Elias said, returning to his cart. But before he could leave, Maya called out, "Elias, why do you let them treat you like that?" He paused with his back to her. When he finally turned around, there was something ancient in his expression, like he was carrying secrets that weighed more than any person should bear. Because, he said slowly, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let people underestimate you. Then he disappeared down the hallway, leaving Maya with a puzzle she couldn't solve and a growing certainty that Elias Whitmore was not who he appeared to be. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya's life became increasingly difficult. Preston Hale made sure of it. Her assignments were suddenly rejected for quality issues that never existed before. She was excluded from meetings. Her name was left off project credits. It was death by 1,000 cuts, nothing she could officially complain about, but enough to make her professional life miserable. But Maya was stubborn. She kept showing up, kept doing excellent work, and kept refusing to apologize. She also kept noticing things about Elias. Small things, strange things, like the way he walked, not with the hunched shuffle of someone beaten down by life, but with a quiet confidence, shoulders back despite the uniform. Like the way he spoke when he thought no one was listening, his vocabulary too refined, his pronunciation too perfect. And then there were his hands. One evening, Maya noticed him reading during his break, not a magazine or a cheap paperback, but a leather-bound book with gilt edges. When she got close enough to see the title, her breath caught. The Art of War, Sun Tzu, in the original Chinese. "You read classical Chinese?" she blurted. Elias looked up, surprised at being caught. For just a moment, his carefully maintained mask slipped, and she saw something underneath. Intelligence, education, layers of hidden depth. "I studied it in college," he said simply. "Which college?" A pause. "It was a long time ago." He closed the book and stood, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. But Maya couldn't let it go. "Elias, who are you really?" "I'm a janitor. That's all you need to know." "I don't believe you." He looked at her for a long moment, and in his eyes she saw a war being waged, the desire to trust her battling against years of practiced secrecy. "Some truths," he finally said, "are dangerous to know. I'll take that risk." "You already have, by defending me." Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Stop asking questions for your own safety." Her blood ran cold. She showed Elias the screen. His jaw tightened. "They're watching you now." "Who is they?" "The people who want me to stay invisible." Maya's mind raced. "Why? What did you do?" "Nothing. That's the problem." He took a deep breath. "Maya, I need you to trust me, and I need you to stop digging, please." But Maya had never been good at backing down. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, wondering who Elias really is and what Maya is about to uncover, do me a favor, hit that subscribe and like button. Drop a comment telling me what you think is going on here, because this story is about to take a turn that will blow your mind. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's find out what Maya discovers when she refuses to stop digging. "My mother was the only good person in that family," Elias began, his voice raw. "My father died when I was 12. After that, it was just her and me against the wolves." He stared at the floor, lost in memories. Whitmore Industries was founded by my great-great-grandfather in 1889, steel manufacturing, then later defense contracts. By the time I was born, it was worth billions. My uncle, Charles Whitmore, ran the company while my mother managed the family trust. Charles wanted to take the company public. My mother refused. She believed in legacy, in responsibility. The company employed 30,000 people across 12 states. She wouldn't let him destroy that for a quick profit. They fought for years, and when I turned 24, I sided with her. That was the biggest mistake of my life. Maya sat across from him, barely breathing. 3 months later, her brakes failed on a mountain road in Colorado. She died instantly. The police called it an accident, but I found the mechanic's report before it was buried. Someone had deliberately cut the brake lines. Your uncle, Maya whispered. Elias nodded. Charles, or someone he hired. I couldn't prove it, but I knew, and I knew I was next. I had a trust fund worth billions that I'd inherit when I turned 35. If I died before then, everything went to Charles. So I vanished, changed my name, well, shortened it, let the beard grow out, lost 40 pounds, started wearing glasses I didn't need, and I took jobs where people don't look twice. Dishwasher, warehouse worker, janitor. For 10 years I've been nobody, and it worked, until you. Maya's throat tightened. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. No, Elias looked at her with something like wonder. You did something no one has done in a decade. You saw me, the real me, not the heir, not the disguise, just me. The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken meaning. Preston knows who you are, Maya said. He's going to tell your uncle. I know. So what do we do? Elias met her eyes. We, Maya? There is no we. You need to distance yourself from me immediately. Quit your job, leave Chicago, go somewhere safe. No. Maya, I said no. She stood, crossing her arms. You've been running for 10 years. Maybe it's time to stop. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. You have evidence, the mechanic's report, financial records, motive. We go to the police, to the FBI, to whoever will listen. Elias laughed, but there was no humor in it. My family owns half the judges in this state. They have senators on their payroll. You think the police will help? Then we go to the press. And say what? I'm a missing heir with no proof except a mechanic's report that disappeared years ago? They'll bury me before the ink dries. Maya paced her small apartment, thinking. Your birthday. You said you inherit at 35. When is it? 2 weeks. Maya stopped. That's why Preston is moving now. Your uncle needs you dead before you can claim the inheritance. Elias nodded grimly. Once I turn 35, the trust activates automatically. Charles can't stop it, but if I die before then... We have 2 weeks, Maya said, her mind racing. 2 weeks to prove what your uncle did and keep you alive long enough to inherit. That's impossible. Maybe, Maya turned to face him, her jaw set, but I didn't back down from Preston Hale, and I'm not backing down from this. You saved yourself by becoming invisible. Now let me help you by making you visible again, on your terms. For the first time in 10 years, Elias felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. They worked through the night. Maya's apartment became a command center. Her laptop, Elias's photographic memory, and 3 pots of terrible coffee. They built a case piece by piece. Elias remembered the mechanic's name, Frank Delgado, a man who'd worked at the Colorado garage where his mother's car had been serviced. Maya tracked him down, now retired, living in Phoenix, Arizona. At 3 a.m, Maya called him. Mr. Delgado? My name is Maya Chen. I'm calling about a case from 10 years ago, Rebecca Whitmore. A long silence. Then, how did you get this number? That doesn't matter. What matters is I know you found evidence of sabotage, and I know someone paid you to bury it. Another silence. Maya held her breath. They gave me $50,000, Delgado finally said, his voice thick with old guilt. Told me to lose the report and forget I ever saw anything. I have a family. I was scared. Do you still have a copy? Maybe. Mr. Delgado, Rebecca Whitmore's son is still alive, and he's going to be killed unless you help us. A long exhale. Give me until morning. I'll look. The call ended. Maya and Elias stared at each other. He'll do it, Maya said. How do you know? Because people want to do the right thing, they just need someone to give them permission. By dawn, they had a plan. Not a perfect plan, but a chance. Frank Delgado would overnight the mechanics report to a lawyer Maya had found, someone outside Chicago, outside Whitmore influence. Meanwhile, Elias would record a video statement detailing everything: his mother's murder, his uncle's conspiracy, his 10 years in hiding. They'd release it simultaneously with the mechanics report, flooding the news cycle before the Whitmore family could suppress it. But they needed one more thing: proof that Preston Hale was actively hunting Elias. "He's been watching you, following you. That means there's evidence, security footage maybe, or emails. How do we get access to that?" Maya smiled. "I work in marketing. I know how to access the company's security system." It was risky, illegal probably, but they were out of options. That night, Maya returned to the office. The building was nearly empty, just a few workaholics and the night cleaning crew, Elias among them. She logged into the company's administrative portal, her heart hammering. Security footage was technically accessible to senior management, but she definitely wasn't senior management. If anyone noticed what she was doing. She navigated to footage from 2 weeks ago, the morning of the coffee incident. There it was, Preston deliberately bumping into Elias, the hot liquid splashing, the cruel laughter. But that wasn't the smoking gun. Maya kept scrolling through footage, jumping between cameras. Then she found it. 3 days later, late at night, Preston in his office, on the phone. The security camera didn't have audio, but Maya could read his lips just enough. "Found him. Yes, I'm certain. Elias Whitmore." Her blood turned to ice. Then Preston did something that made her gasp. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a file. Even from the grainy security footage, Maya could make out the label, "Whitmore, Confidential." He made a phone call, took photos of the documents, sent them to someone. Maya quickly downloaded the footage onto a thumb drive, her hands shaking. She had him. She had proof that Preston Hale knew Elias's true identity and was reporting to someone, almost certainly Charles Whitmore. She was logging out when she heard footsteps behind her. Working late? Maya's heart stopped. She turned slowly. Preston Hale stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Just finishing some reports," Maya said, fighting to keep her voice steady. Preston walked closer, his eyes drifting to her computer screen, which thankfully showed just her email, but his smile was knowing, dangerous. "You've been very busy lately, asking questions, making phone calls." He leaned against her desk. "I'm curious, Maya. What exactly are you looking for?" "I don't know what you mean." "I think you do, and I think you're making a mistake that could ruin your life." Maya stood, meeting his gaze. "Funny, I was about to say the same thing to you." For just a second, uncertainty flashed in Preston's eyes, then he laughed. "You have no idea what you're caught up in. Walk away now and maybe you'll survive. Or maybe you're the one who should walk away." Preston's smile vanished. "Threatening me is a very bad idea." "It's not a threat. It's a promise." They stared at each other, the air thick with tension. Then Preston stepped back. "Suit yourself, but don't say I didn't warn you." He left, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Maya waited until she heard the elevator doors close, then she grabbed her bag, the thumb drive clutched in her shaking hand, and ran. They met at a 24-hour diner in a neighborhood where neither of them would be recognized. Maya slid into the booth across from Elias, her face pale. "He knows I know," she said. Elias closed his eyes. "We need to move faster." "The lawyer has the mechanics report. The video statement is ready. We have the security footage. We just need to coordinate the release." "Tomorrow," Elias said. "We do it tomorrow, before they have time to stop us." Maya nodded. Then she reached across the table and took his hand. "Whatever happens," she said, "I'm glad I met you." Elias squeezed her hand. "Maya, if this goes wrong," he said, "I know it won't. But if it does, I need you to know something." He took a breath. "These past 2 weeks, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. You reminded me who I used to be, who I still could be." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "Elias." "I'm not good at this," he continued, his voice rough. "I haven't let anyone get close in 10 years. But you saw me when I was invisible. You stood up for me when it cost you everything. And I—" He stopped, struggling for words. Maya smiled through her tears. "I know. Me too." They sat there in the fluorescent light of a cheap diner, holding hands across a plastic table, two people from different worlds who'd found each other in the most impossible circumstances. Outside, Chicago hummed with life, unaware that tomorrow everything would change. The news broke at 8 a.m. Maya had coordinated with a journalist at the Chicago Tribune, someone known for taking on powerful families. The story went live simultaneously with Elias's video statement and the release of Frank Delgado's mechanic report. "Whitmore heir alive alleges family conspiracy in mother's death." Within an hour, it was everywhere. National news, social media, financial networks breathlessly reporting that Elias Whitmore III, the missing billionaire heir, had been hiding in Chicago as a janitor. Maya watched from her apartment as the world exploded. Her phone rang constantly. Reporters, colleagues, strangers. She ignored them all. Instead, she called Elias, who was at a safe house arranged by the lawyer. "It's working," she said. "They can't suppress it. It's too big." "Charles will deny everything." "Let him. The court of public opinion is already turning." And she was right. Social media erupted with the story. Hashtag Justice for Elias trended worldwide. Investigative journalists descended on the Whitmore family like vultures. By noon, the FBI announced they were reopening the investigation into Rebecca Whitmore's death. By 2 p.m., Charles Whitmore's lawyer released a statement denying all allegations. By 5 p.m., Preston Hale was escorted out of the Meridian Solutions building by federal agents. Maya watched it all unfold from her window, her phone clutched in her hand, tears streaming down her face. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. 3 days later, Maya stood in the lobby of a building she never thought she'd enter, Whitmore Industries headquarters in Boston, Massachusetts. The FBI investigation had moved quickly. Preston Hale, facing charges of conspiracy and obstruction of justice, had flipped on Charles Whitmore in exchange for a reduced sentence. He provided emails, recorded conversations, financial transactions, everything. Charles Whitmore was arrested at his estate in Martha's Vineyard, charged with conspiracy to commit murder. And Elias Whitmore III, who'd spent 10 years mopping floors and emptying trash, walked back into his family's company for the first time in a decade. Maya accompanied him not as a bodyguard or assistant, but as the person who'd given him the courage to stop running. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like ascending into another universe. When the doors opened, a dozen people in expensive suits turned to stare. Elias stepped out, his shoulders straight, his head high. He wasn't wearing a janitor's uniform anymore, but he wasn't wearing the expensive suits of his old life either. Instead, he wore simple jeans, a button-down shirt, and the kind of quiet confidence that came from surviving impossible things. "My name is Elias Whitmore III, and I'm here to take back what's mine." 6 months later, Maya stood on the balcony of a penthouse in Lincoln Park, watching the sun set over Chicago. The past half year had been a whirlwind. Elias had assumed control of Whitmore Industries and immediately announced sweeping reforms: profit sharing for workers, investments in green technology, a commitment to ethical business practices. The old guard had resisted, of course, but Elias had something they didn't: public support. The story of the billionaire heir who'd lived as a janitor had captured the world's imagination. People loved him, trusted him, and he'd used that trust to transform the company into something his mother would have been proud of. As for Maya, she'd left Meridian Solutions, though not before Roger Stanton was fired for enabling Preston Hale's harassment. She'd been offered a VP position at Whitmore Industries, heading up a new initiative for corporate social responsibility. But more than any professional success, she'd found something she never expected: partnership, love. She heard the sliding door open behind her. Elias stepped onto the balcony, 2 glasses of wine in his hands. "Penny for your thoughts?" he said, handing her a glass. Maya smiled. "I was just thinking about that morning when I defended you. Best decision you ever made?" "Second best." "What was the first?" Maya turned to him fully. "Not giving up on you, even when you told me to." Elias set down his glass and took her hands. "I spent 10 years invisible, afraid, alone, and then you saw me, really saw me. You changed my life, Maya Chen. We changed each other's lives." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Maya's breath caught. "I know this is fast," Elias said, his voice shaking slightly, "and I know we've only known each other for 6 months, but I've learned something. Life is too short to hide who you are or what you feel. I wasted 10 years being invisible. I don't want to waste another day not being fully present with you." He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Elegant, understated, perfect. "Maya Chen, will you marry me?" Maya's tears came freely now, but they were tears of joy. "Yes, 1,000 times yes!" As Elias slipped the ring on her finger, Maya thought about the journey that had brought them here. A spilled coffee, a moment of courage, a decision to stand up when everyone else looked away. She'd defended a janitor from Bullies and discovered he was a hidden billionaire heir. But more than that, she'd found her partner, her equal, the person who saw her just as clearly as she saw him. "I love you," Elias whispered, pulling her close. "I love you too, even when you were just a janitor with a mop." Elias laughed. "Especially when you were just a janitor with a mop." They stood on that balcony as the Chicago skyline lit up with evening lights. 2 people who had found each other in the most unlikely way, who had fought together against impossible odds, and who had proven that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply see someone, really see them, for who they truly are. 1 year later, Maya and Elias stood in front of a brand new building in the south side of Chicago. The sign above the door read, "The Rebecca Whitmore Community Center." It was the first of 20 such centers Elias was funding across the country, places where people could get job training, legal assistance, healthcare, and support, places named after his mother, who'd believed that wealth came with responsibility. "She would have loved this," Elias said softly, squeezing Maya's hand. "She would have loved you," Maya replied, "the man you've become." Standing beside them was Frank Delgado, the mechanic whose courage to tell the truth had helped bring down a conspiracy. Elias had personally flown him and his family to Chicago for the opening ceremony and had set up a college fund for all 3 of his grandchildren. "Thank you," Frank said, his voice thick with emotion, "for giving me a chance to make things right." "Thank you," Elias replied, "for keeping the evidence all these years. You saved my life." Also in attendance was Roger Stanton, Maya's former manager, who now worked as a program director at the community center. After being fired from Meridian Solutions, he'd struggled to find work until Maya offered him a second chance. He'd taken it gratefully and had spent the past year proving he could be better than the man who told her to keep her head down. "People can change," Maya had told Elias when he questioned the hiring. "We just have to give them the opportunity." As the ribbon-cutting ceremony began, Maya looked around at the faces in the crowd. Families from the neighborhood, former employees of Whitmore Industries who'd been laid off under Charles's leadership and were now being rehired. journalists who'd helped tell the story, and dozens of people who'd simply been inspired by the tale of a billionaire who lived as a janitor and learned what really mattered. When it was Maya's turn to speak, she stepped up to the microphone, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly. She was 3 months pregnant, a secret they'd share with the world soon enough. "A year ago," she began, "I made a decision that changed my life. I stood up for someone who was being bullied. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what it would cost me. I just knew it was the right thing to do." She found Elias in the crowd, his eyes shining with love and pride. "What I learned is this. We live in a world that judges people by their job titles, their bank accounts, their designer clothes. But real worth, human worth, has nothing to do with any of that. It's about character, courage, kindness." Maya's voice strengthened. Elias Whitmore could have lived his entire life in luxury, insulated from the struggles of ordinary people. Instead, he chose to live among us, to work beside us, to understand what it means to be overlooked, underestimated, and invisible. And what he discovered, what we both discovered, is that the people society ignores are often the ones with the most to teach us. The janitors, the waitresses, the factory workers, the home health aides, they're not just doing jobs, they're the backbone of our society, and they deserve our respect. The crowd erupted in applause. As Maya stepped down from the podium, Elias wrapped his arms around her. "That was perfect," he whispered. "We're just getting started," Maya replied. And they were. Over the next 5 years, the Whitmore Chen Foundation, Maya had insisted her name be included, would build community centers in 73 cities. They'd fund scholarships for first-generation college students, provide legal defense for workers facing discrimination, and lobby for better wages and benefits across industries. Elias transformed Whitmore Industries into a model of ethical business practices. Worker satisfaction soared. Profits actually increased, proving that doing good and doing well weren't mutually exclusive. As for Preston Hale, he served 4 years in federal prison for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. When he was released, Elias did something that shocked everyone. He offered him a job. Not as an executive, but as a coordinator for worker relations at one of the Whitmore factories. "Everyone deserves a second chance," Elias said when asked why. "I just hope he uses his wisely." Charles Whitmore was sentenced to 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder. He died in prison 3 years into his sentence, a broken man who'd lost everything in pursuit of greed. And Julia Frost, the executive who'd mocked Elias that fateful morning, actually reached out to Maya 2 years after the scandal. She'd lost her job, her reputation, and most of her friends. She was working as a real estate agent, trying in her own way to rebuild her life. "I'm sorry," she wrote in an email. "I was cruel to someone who didn't deserve it. I judged him by his job instead of his character. I've spent 2 years thinking about that moment, and I want you to know I'm trying to be better." Maya wrote back, "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after." They met for coffee, appropriately enough, and Maya learned that Julia had started volunteering at a homeless shelter, trying in her own way to make amends. "I used to think success meant status and money. Now I know it means being able to look at yourself in the mirror without shame." Maya smiled. "Then you're more successful than you've ever been." 10 years after that morning when Maya defended a janitor from bullies, she stood in the living room of their home in Oak Park, a beautiful but not ostentatious house where they were raising their 3 children, Rebecca, named after Elias's mother, James, and Sophia. On the mantelpiece was a photo from that first day, Maya and Elias in the courthouse, holding hands as they testified against Charles Whitmore. They looked scared in the photo, but determined, united. Elias came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How one moment can change everything," Maya said. how standing up for what's right can lead you to places you never imagined. Any regrets? Maya turned in his arms, looking into the eyes of the man who'd been a janitor, a billionaire, a fugitive, and finally, simply, her partner. Not a single one. Their oldest daughter, Rebecca, came running in from the backyard. At 7 years old, she had her father's eyes and her mother's fierce sense of justice. "Mommy, Daddy, there's a boy at school who everyone's being mean to because his clothes are old. I told them to stop." Maya knelt down to her daughter's level. Did they listen? Not yet, but I'm not giving up. Elias and Maya exchanged a smile. "That's my girl," Maya said, pulling Rebecca into a hug. "Never give up on doing what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." As the evening sun streamed through the windows, casting golden light across their home, Maya thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a cold corporate building in downtown Chicago to this warm, love-filled house, from strangers to soulmates, from invisibility to visibility. She'd defended a janitor from Bullies and learned he was a hidden billionaire heir, but the real treasure wasn't the money or the status or the fairy tale ending. It was the lesson that had been there all along. Every person you meet, regardless of their job or appearance or social status, has a story, has worth, has dignity. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply see them, really see them, and stand up for them when no one else will. Because that single act of courage, that refusal to look away when others are being mistreated, can change not just one life, but many. It can spark a revolution of kindness in a world that desperately needs it. And it can lead you to a love deeper than you ever imagined possible. Maya Chen had learned all of this the day she defended a stranger with a mop. And she would spend the rest of her life teaching others the same truth, that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in the courage to do what's right, even when it costs you everything, and in the love you find when you refuse to let the world make you hard, cynical, or indifferent. That morning in Chicago, Maya had made a choice. She'd stood up for someone who couldn't stand up for himself. And in doing so, she'd found her purpose, her partner, and her path. The world needs more people like Maya, people who don't look away, people who stand up, people who believe that everyone, from the janitor to the CEO, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. If this story moved you, if it made you think about how you treat the people around you, do me a favor, share it. Let it be a reminder that kindness isn't weakness, that courage doesn't always look like we expect, and that sometimes the person you defend today might just change your life tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being someone who believes in justice, in second chances, and in the power of one person to make a difference. Now go out there and be Maya. Stand up for someone. See someone who feels invisible. Make the world a little bit kinder, because that's how we change everything, one brave moment at a time.